By now we all know about Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 that mysteriously disappeared on March 8, 2014. The plane was flying from Kuala Lumpur and was on its way to Beijing Capital International Airport until an hour into the flight the plane was reported missing. An investigation into the flight's location was started immediately. Eventually it was learned that military radar data showed that the plane continued to fly off course after it went missing from air traffic control radars. After exhaustive searching, no wreckage or debris has been found from the plane. There is no one specific area to search for the plane, which makes the search area very large. To find a plane in such a large area would be an almost impossible feat. While the probability is high that the plane could have crashed, we will explore some of the conspiracy theories surrounding Malaysia Flight 370. The first conspiracy we will review is the theory that it was shot down, possibly by a military operation. We've seen in the past that this could be a highly probable situation. In 1988, an Iran airplane was shot down by mistake by the US Navy. They mistaken the plane for an F-14 Tomcat fighter. A few years later, in 1996, TWA Flight 800 crashed. Many people today believe it was actually shot down by a missile. These are just two incidences that involve planes being shot down. Could this have happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370? A new book published by Nigel Cawthorne states that at the time of the crash, there were war games taking place in the South China Sea involving Thailand, the US and personnel from China, Japan, Indonesia and others. War games were also taking place during the crash of TWA Flight 800. It's possible that the Malaysian airplane was mistaken for an enemy and was shot down. However, the missile theory may have just one problem. A missile would explode the plane into many pieces and possibly burn in the ocean. If the missile theory is true, why hasn't the wreckage been found? An oil rig worker named Mike McKay working on the Songlam sent an email to his bosses detailing what he saw. He observed the plane burning at high altitude, in one piece. If Mr. McKay's eyewitness report is in fact true, it means that there was a fire on board the plane. Was the fire caused by a malfunction? An onboard bomb? Or a missile? Mr. McKay gave the exact coordinates of where the crash took place. They claimed they did search the area, but nothing was found. Dr. Mahathir wrote in his latest blog that planes don't just disappear. Certainly not these days, with all the powerful communication systems, radio and satellite tracking, and filmless cameras which operate almost indefinitely and possess huge storage capacities. Can it not be that the pilots of MH370 lost control of their aircraft after someone directly or remotely activated the equipment for seizure of control of the aircraft? Could what the former Prime Minister is saying true? That planes can be taken control of from the outside.
And we will look at all kinds of technologies to make sure that our airlines are safe, and for example, including technology to enable controllers to take over distressed aircraft and land it by remote control.
According to former President George Bush, they were going to look into new technologies to make sure airlines are safe, including technologies that will allow controllers to take over distressed aircrafts and land at remote control. Assuming the US government proceeded to develop this technology, it would be safe to assume that this technology would be possible 13 years after his talk about securing the nation. After hearing George Bush's speech, we can assume that there was a possibility that the Malaysian plane could have been remote controlled by someone else. Meaning, the plane did not crash, but could have been landed somewhere. After Malaysia Airlines plane went missing from air traffic control radars, the plane was still being picked up on military radars. We can see the flight path continued on towards Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Could the plane have landed here? There isn't much proof that it has. However, further west near the remote islands in Maldives, several residents reported seeing a jet matching missing Malaysia Airlines plane's description. Islanders claimed they were disturbed by an incredibly loud noise at about 6:15 a.m. local time on March 8 and saw a plane traveling from north to southeast, towards Adu, the southern tip of Maldives. The alleged sighting, around 2,000 miles away from Kuala Lumpur, came hours after Beijing-bound flight MH370 vanished on the same day with 239 people on board. One witness said, "I've never seen a jet flying so low over our island before. We've seen seaplanes, but I'm sure that this was not one of those. I could even make out the doors on the plane clearly." It's not just me either. Several other residents have reported seeing the exact same thing. Some people got out of their houses to see what was causing the tremendous noise too. According to these eyewitness reports from the remote island in Maldives, the jet they saw was traveling from north to southeast. If the plane was going to be landed somewhere, it could have been on a military base on the island of Diego Garcia. There have been many reports that suggested that the plane could have been landed on the military base of Diego Garcia. One idea is that the plane was landed on the island, and all of the passengers were held hostage. But what would be the purpose of taking passengers hostage on Diego Garcia? The theory states that the intention behind taking the plane is concerning 20 top employees of Freescale Semiconductor Incorporated on the flight. These people reportedly worked on the development of semiconductor and were soon going to get it patented. But if the rest of the people who worked on the project are gone, the patent can't be owned by one person named Jacob Rothschild. Another reason behind the plane's disappearance could be that some government wanted to get their hands on the knowledge held by the 20 top employees to have this microchip built for some reason. Another idea stated that a photo was taken by a hostage and uploaded to the internet. The photo contained EXIF data, which showed the GPS coordinates from where the photo was taken, which happened to be on Diego Garcia. This was later debunked, since anyone is capable of manipulating EXIF data from a photo. What makes the landing of the Malaysia Airlines plane on Diego Garcia more believable is that the captain of the plane programmed the flight to Diego Garcia in his at-home flight simulator. There may have been additional information on the computer, but the data was deleted a month prior to the plane's disappearance. Experts are still trying to recover the deleted data. According to a Russian newspaper, MH370 has been hijacked and flown to Afghanistan. Unknown terrorists are said to have taken control of the missing plane and forced it to land near Kandahar. According to the Russian intelligence, pilots are not guilty. We know that the name of the terrorist who gave instructions to pilots is Hitch. The plane is in Afghanistan, not far from Kandahar near the border with Pakistan. The theory further says, the passengers have been divided into 7 groups and are living in mud huts with almost no food. 20 Asian passengers were said to have been smuggled into a bunker in Pakistan. Since these theories were stated in April, there has not been any proof that the plane has been flown and kept in Afghanistan. Israel has a retired duplicate of the missing Malaysia Airlines plane, and it is stored in Tel Aviv. What are the Israelis doing with this retired Malaysia Airlines plane in a hangar in Tel Aviv? The plane is currently owned by a company named GA Telesis. GA Telesis works with commercial airlines, offering aircraft leasing, aircraft overhaul and repair, and aircraft replacement parts. Could they be storing the plane for someone? Conspiracy theories say that the duplicate plane will be used in a false flag terror plot. The last conspiracy theory involves the United States command and control technology, which is used for controlling the pilotless drones. Supposedly, the system was hijacked by the Taliban. Apparently this happened in February, 1 month prior to MH370's disappearance. The Taliban sells this system to the Chinese. The Chinese sent 8 of their top defense scientists to check the system and agreed to pay millions for it. Sometime in early March 2014, the 8 scientists made their way to Malaysia, thinking that it was the best covert way to avoid detection. The cargo was then kept in the embassy under diplomatic protection. Meanwhile, the Americans have engaged the assistance of Israeli intelligence, and together they are determined to intercept and recapture the cargo. The Chinese calculated that it will be safe to transport it via civilian aircraft so as to avoid suspicion. After all, the direct flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing takes only 4.5 hours, and the American will not hijack or harm the civilians. So MH370 is the perfect carrier. There are 5 Americans and 2 Israeli agents on board who are familiar with Boeing operation. The 2 Iranians with stolen passports are the 2 Israeli agents. When MH370 is about to leave the Malaysian airspace and reporting to Vietnamese air control, 1 American AWAC jammed their signal, disabled the pilot control system, and switched over to remote control mode. That was when the plane suddenly lost altitude momentarily. The plane flew over North Sumatra, Anambas, South India, and then landed at Maldives, refueled, and continued its flight to Diego Garcia. The cargo and the black box were removed. The passengers were silenced via natural means, lack of oxygen. The MH370 with dead passengers were airborne again via remote control and crashed into South Indian Ocean. To make believe the plane eventually ran out of fuel and crashed, and blamed the defiant captain and co-pilot. The amount of effort put up by China, in terms of the number of search aircraft, ships and satellites, searching first the South China Sea, then the Malacca Straits and the Indian Ocean, is unprecedented. This showed that China is very concerned. Not so much of the many Chinese civilian passengers, but mainly the high-value cargo and its 8 top defense scientists. That concludes this video of the many conspiracy theories surrounding Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Interested in other conspiracies? Watch our latest documentary about TWA Flight 800.